What's up, guys? This is Cooking with Cleo because nobody cares about cooking with Kaya, and I am going to be showing you guys how to make my sticky toffee pudding with a little bit of a surprise. We're gonna put some raspberries in it, but yeah, in the video comments I will be posting the recipe for both the sticky toffee pudding with just the dates and with the raspberries.
Go. Okay, so for the actual sponge cake, you're gonna need light brown sugar, you're gonna need butter, and for this specific variant of the recipe, we're gonna use raspberries, dates, preferably pitted unless you wanna pit them yourselves, flour, and for our toffee sauce, also for the cake, we'll also need some baking powder and baking soda. But for the toffee sauce, you'll need a whiskey, Maker's Mark works well, light corn syrup, whole milk, and butter, and again, sugar. Okay, so for the next part, we're gonna take a pot with some water, and we're gonna need about half a cup of boiling water. So just let that water get to a boil, take it off the heat. Okay, so while that water is taking its time to boil, I already pre-chopped up for this specific recipe. Normally it calls for 3/4 cup of dates chopped, but I'm gonna do equal portions date and raspberry. So again, just so you can see, this is just going to be filling it up to our roughly 3/4 of a cup. There's space, so. But yeah, then take a bowl, we're gonna pour that in, and I will come back when that water is done boiling. Okay, now that that water is finished boiling, we're gonna take half a cup of water, of our boiling water, and we're going to pour it over our mixture of date and raspberry. You need a little bit more, tiny bit more. So next thing we're gonna do is we're going to push down that date with a spoon. Let me just use my tasting spoon. Push it down so it's submerged in the water, and then we're gonna take 1 teaspoon of baking soda and pour it in and mix that around a bit. So what that's gonna do is that baking soda is gonna break down those dates and the raspberry, and it's also gonna add a little bit of salt. Okay, so now that those dates and raspberries are submerged in that baking soda, we're gonna set a timer for 10 minutes, let that work its way for 10 minutes, and while that's working, we're gonna start on the batter with the stand mixer. Go. Okay, before we do anything else, we're going to turn on the oven and we're gonna have it start heating up to 350 degrees. The next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take 3 tablespoons of butter. Some recipes call for this to be sort of room temperature, but I actually like to microwave it to where it's melted because we're gonna cream butter and sugar in the stand mixer, and I prefer a bit more aeration in my cake for the sticky toffee pudding. So 30 seconds. Okay, so for this part, you're gonna need a paddle attachment for the stand mixer. You can do this all by hand, but you're gonna probably go crazy if you do that. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna do creaming butter and sugar. So what you're gonna need is your 3 tablespoons of butter. I like mine melted because it tends to cream butter into that sugar. And we're gonna take 6 tablespoons. Where'd I put my tablespoon measurement? There it is. We're gonna take 6 tablespoons of brown sugar. Make sure you pack it in nicely. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're gonna cream that on a higher speed. I can't think today. But not too fast. So a good 5 on the stand mixer, I'd say. So we're gonna wait for that to cream together. Okay, so now that that is creamed together, we're gonna take 1 egg, crack that egg in, then we're going to start the stand mixer again, but we're gonna put it on a lower speed, more of a medium speed, and then whisk that together till it's fully incorporated. Okay, so now that that egg is incorporated, we're going to then take a very specific amount of flour, packed in, half a cup of flour, and then 2 tablespoons following. So we're actually going to do that on a lower speed in the stand mixer while it is going. So, yep, just whatever your lower speed is. 1, 2. Then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take the spatula and push down, push down on the edges to get that flour in. You can see that texture change. And if you need to turn off the stand mixer to knock some of that off of the sides of the actual spatula in there, do it. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna take some of that off and sort of just shake that off using my spatula, knock some of that down so we can incorporate a little bit of remaining flour. And also what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a very specific number again. I'm gonna take 0.70, like roughly 70% of a teaspoon of baking powder. And what this is, it's a leavened, which means that this is gonna help our cake rise when it hits the oven. So we're gonna incorporate the rest of that on our low speed. Push, and you can even use the paddle attachment to clean off your spatula if you need to. Yep. Just push the rest of that down. And I will come back in just a second with the remainder of the ingredients. Let's go. Okay, so that timer actually just went off for the 10 minutes, so perfect timing. So these are pretty much broken down. What we're gonna do is we're gonna take my really crappy blender, I need to get a new one, and we're going to put this in the blender. And I mean, it's crappy because I have to shake it for it to blend properly, but it's not too bad. After I win Master Chef or something, I will definitely invest in a new blender. Yeah, here we go. We're gonna So normally this turns out browner because we have just dates, but in this case we have raspberries as well. So it's gonna be more of a purple texture, color. So we're going to actually incorporate this into our batter and we're gonna keep combining it. So yep, that just goes in. Give it a bit of a shake, get some of those excess bits off. Yep. Then, and again, normally the batter is brown, but we're gonna get more of a purple batter because we incorporated raspberry. There we go. And so, this speed, we're gonna start pushing down some of our ingredients. Careful with the spatula, you don't wanna break it. And in this case, you have to lift it up again and start really just pushing down some of that into the solution, then do it, because sometimes some of that pre-batter mix doesn't quite want to incorporate on its own without a little push. Start it again. And so you're gonna get this nice batter texture. Again, this would normally be lighter brown, but because we use raspberries, it's gonna be more of this darker color. But not to worry, it's going to taste amazing. Go. Okay, so now that we've had our batter made, we're gonna take just a small tablespoon of butter, just microwave it until it's more melted. And we're gonna take our pan, and essentially the butter we're gonna do is we're gonna brush that pan so we can easily get those cakes out instead of them sticking. So in this case, the batter in this will typically make about 3 of these larger cupcake pans. So we're going to do this for 3 of them and then pour our batter. Go. Okay, so now that we have our pan buttered, we're actually going to start putting the batter inside those individual cups. And the one thing you want to do is you do not want to fill this all the way up. And it's because we have a leaven in there, which is our baking powder. Because if you do that, oh shit, I got it on the side. If you do that, then it's going to essentially rise way too much. So yeah, it rises like Jesus on an Easter Sunday. But pretty much what you're gonna want to do, fill it a good half of the way, move on to the next cup. Try not to get it on the sides like I'm doing, like a mess. I should have just used a spoon. But yeah. And so you can start a little low and then just start filling up those other cups and then sort of even them out and redistribute as you need to. Okay, so now that we've distributed these, it doesn't matter if you make a little bit of a mess, it'll still rise properly. We're going to put this in the oven, 350 degrees, since we have that preheated. And we're going to let that cook for around 17 to 19 minutes. It can depend on, altitude, just a multitude of factors, but generally 17 to 19 minutes. So, nope, let's not do that. Come on, there we go. So I always start with 17 on the timer, and whenever we get to around 7 minutes left on the timer is when I'm gonna come back and start the toffee sauce. 1, go. Okay, so now that we're at around 7 minutes out, we're going to take our ingredients for the toffee sauce. So this might seem like a lot of butter, but it's not. We're gonna take about half a cup, which is 1 stick of butter, and we're gonna melt that. Once this melts a bit, we're gonna put in 1 whole cup of packed brown sugar and incorporate that with the butter. Okay, so now that this is mostly melted, we don't want to boil the butter or brown it, so we're actually going to take our 1 cup of packed brown sugar, reduce that heat a bit, and we're going to start mixing that together and incorporating that. Let me get my spatula. So yeah, we're just going to break that down and start mixing that into our butter. So once that is all melted together and a bit more incorporated, what we're going to do is we're going to take 2 teaspoons. So you're going to go 2, 2, 2. You're going to do 2 teaspoons of whole milk, 2 teaspoons of heavy cream, 2 teaspoons of the corn syrup, light corn syrup. So we will quickly grab our tablespoons. So I'll start with my milk. 1, 2, sorry, and then heavy cream. 1, 2, 2 teaspoons of our light corn syrup. I'm trying to do this quickly because we don't want to boil the actual toffee sauce. Sometimes you gotta shake this a bit to get it to come out. And if you have to take this off the heat for just a second while you're putting this together, then do it. Oh, got some in there. Yep. 1. Let's try to get this last one. And this is where I need to buy another thing of corn syrup. Again, corn syrup, not necessarily the best for you ingredient, but makes it taste good. Okay, so now that we've gotten that in, we're going to turn that heat back up a tiny bit and continue mixing. So this is all going to incorporate together into a lovely toffee sauce. And then after this is done cooking, you're gonna stir and incorporate this for about 3 minutes on a little bit of a higher heat. And then after it's done cooking and incorporating, we're gonna take 2 tablespoons of our Maker's Mark whiskey, and that alcohol is gonna burn off pretty quickly whenever we put that in there. And we do that at the very end. Okay, so this, taking it off the heat, if you wanna see what this toffee texture looks like, It's a gorgeous toffee sauce. So now we're gonna introduce 2 tablespoons of whichever bourbon you like. I personally like Maker's Mark. It's going to bubble and it's gonna cook off some of the alcohol. And it just adds a hint of a vanilla taste with this specific alcohol. I'm gonna put it back on the heat, give it a little more. So, cook that off. And then the timer also just beeped, so what we're going to do is we're going to take our toothpick and we're gonna test. So, first thing you always do is you take a toothpick and test to make sure it comes out clean. Oh, fuck, it's hot. Oh, sorry, French. Look at that. You see how those rose? Yep. So we're gonna take one toothpick into the center, and if it doesn't come out completely clean, then we're gonna put it back in the oven for another 2 minutes. Go. Okay, so another 2 minutes has gone by. We're gonna test this again. So right in the middle, and that should come clean. When it does like that, these are ready. So you want sticky toffee pudding to be served nice and hot with that toffee sauce. So what we're gonna do, sexy serving bowl, move this aside. Make sure you're very careful because you do not want to burn yourself on this pan. So it's fine if you have a clean surface, just carefully knock out your, get them out. Use a knife or a spoon or something to where you can just get along the sides. Okay, here. So I just use a knife along the sides. This will help us be able to scoop this cake out. And the cake comes out. What we're gonna do is we're going to plate it in the center. Then we're going to take our toffee sauce and just drizzle it on top. You want that nice organic pour around the sides, and that toffee sauce is really going to soak its way into the sponge cake. Beautiful. Tiny bit more. So what we're gonna do is we're going to take ice cream. Because who doesn't love ice cream? It can be anything. I personally love a good vanilla. So we'll take this, try to scoop in and make it a very dense ball. And just put it on top with another healthy drizzle of toffee sauce along the top. So that will start melting. And that is how you make a delicious sticky toffee pudding with raspberry. So my partner, lovely partner, will be doing the taste test. So here we go. Ooh, falling off a little. How does it taste?
As good as always.
Thank you, hon. But yeah, keep tuned. I'll make more of these videos.